Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Agentic AI, the future of intelligent systems. This is the very first episode of 2026, a new year, a clean slate, and the perfect moment to reset how Agentic AI is being approached. Wishing all listeners a very happy new year, and thank you for listening, sharing, and staying curious. A lot of conversations at the start of a year turn into predictions, bold takes, trend lists. But this episode goes in a different direction because in 2026, success with agentic AI will not come from chasing the newest model or adopting the latest framework or stacking more tools into a workflow. It will come from building the right skills. Agentic AI has already crossed the wow phase, the novelty phase is over. Now the real separation begins, not between teams with different model access, but between teams with different operational maturity. So, here are three skills that will quietly decide who scales agentic systems in 2026 and who ends up managing chaos, cost spikes, and brittle behavior. The first skill is behavior design. Most agentic systems so far have been designed around intelligence, reasoning depth, planning sophistication, tool coverage, but in production, intelligence is really the hardest part. Behavior is. Behavior design is the discipline of defining how an agent behaves, not just when everything is perfect, but when reality shows up, when the input is unclear, when the user contradicts themselves, when context is missing, when a tool returns partial results, when an API fails silently, when data is delayed, or when the agent simply does not know. A smart agent improvises. A sensible agent follows a contract. It knows when it is allowed to proceed and when it must stop. Behavior design means explicitly defining three things. First, stop rules. What conditions trigger a hard stop instead of continued reasoning? Second, escalation rules. When does the agent hand back control to a human or ask a clarifying question? Third, fallback rules. If the preferred path fails, what is the safe next best option? This is what makes agentic systems predictable, and predictability is the foundation of trust. The second skill is decision budgeting. This one is new for a lot of teams because most agentic systems still treat decision making like it is free. It is not. Every reasoning step has a cost, every tool call has latency, every retry multiplies failure surfaces, every additional loop increases the chance of drift. Decision budgeting is the ability to put explicit limits on how much thinking is allowed before the system must converge, simplify, or stop. Not just time limits, but cognitive limits. For example, a sensible agent might operate with a budget like this. It gets a small number of planning steps to create a path. It gets a limited number of tool calls to validate that path. And it gets one controlled retry if the tool fails. After that, it must either return the best available answer or escalate. Smart systems try to explore everything. Sensible systems recognize diminishing returns. Decision budgeting is lean thinking applied to cognition. And it changes everything because it turns agentic AI from open ended exploration into controlled execution. That is what allows scale. The third skill is failure literacy. In traditional software, failure is treated as something to eliminate. In agentic systems, failure is something to understand, classify, and design around. Because agentic systems do not fail in one clean way, they fail gradually. Sometimes an agent fails by losing context and not realizing it. Sometimes it fails by overtrusting a tool output. Sometimes it fails by filling missing information with confident assumptions. Sometimes it fails by continuing execution after the goal has already shifted. Failure literacy means recognizing these failure modes early and shaping the system to respond safely. It means defining what kind of failure is acceptable, what kind requires a fallback, and what kind must immediately halt execution. In 2026, the strongest teams will not brag only about success rates. They will talk about how cleanly their systems fail. Because failure that is visible and recoverable is not chaos, it is resilience. And there is one detail here that matters more than it sounds. A valuable agent is not the one that never fails. A valuable agent is the one that knows it has failed. So, behavior design, decision budgeting, failure literacy, these are not tools, not frameworks, not vendor features. They are team capabilities. They are the skill layer that sits above models, above orchestration, above prompts, above architecture diagrams. Models will change in 2026, tools will change, platforms will change, but these three skills will remain the difference between agentic systems that impress in demos and agentic systems that endure in reality. That is the real shift for 2026. Not from weak to strong, from smart to sensible. And as the year unfolds, this podcast will go deeper into each of these skills, not as theory, but as practical engineering reality, with patterns, failure stories, and the kind of hard lessons that only show up at scale. Until next time, thank you for being here. Wishing you a focused, intentional, and meaningful start to 2026. This is Agentic AI, the future of intelligent systems.